Hello and welcome to Gary's Garage. Today in the garage we're working on this 2017 Honda Ridgeline. This is a recent acquisition, and this car has about 140,000 kilometers on it, and it needs pretty well all the maintenance. There's been a few things that have been done. The timing belt's been done, the spark plug's been done, but all the fluids are going to get changed, and the first thing up is the automatic transmission, because you need to replace the fluid on these cars every 30,000 miles, which is about 50,000 kilometers. And it has been done once. I had records of it being done once, but none other, so it's probably long overdue. So let me show you what I've got to do this job. So what I've got ready to do this job is four, I believe they're liters. These are liters because we're in Canada. I think in the US they sell them as quarts. I'm not sure. But of the ATF DW-1, that is the correct fluid for this 6-speed automatic. You're also going to need a funnel with a long tube to fill it with, because the filler is way down at the bottom, and there's not much room around. As far as tools are concerned, just looking ahead, I think you need a 3/8 drive ratchet or power bar to open the bolt. I might need to put a extension on that to get some leverage. You're going to need some pliers, and the reason why you need the pliers is because I'm also replacing the inline filter, the one with the inline with the cooler. So it's not required by Honda, but I've decided that I'm going to change this anyway, because it probably hasn't been done. I also have a small 10mm 1/4" drive, which I'll use to get this filter bracket off, and I've got some crush washers. I'm doing all the fluid, so I got a package of crush washers for all the diff and the transfer case, as well as the transmission. You will need a torque wrench, and because you need about 35 foot-pounds to close it. And I have a scan tool here, and the only reason I use this scan tool is to monitor the transmission fluid temperature. So once we've refilled and we want to check the transmission fluid, it needs to be up to operating temperature. To do that, to know that it's at operating temperature, it's a good idea to check the temperature with the scan tool, because the car doesn't tell you. And that should do it. Pair of pliers to help with the clips on the hoses for the filter, and there we go. And of course, always some safety glasses at hand. So let's get started with this job. Okay, I've got the car up. This is a truck, I can only get it so high, so I'm on my little stool here. So the first thing we need to do is get this splash shield off. To do that, there's a couple of these plastic clips, and they're always as stubborn once they've been on the car for a while. Yeah, and there's a chip out of that one. I'm not gonna make you watch me fiddle with this, because it would be too long. So the key with these is just to kind of work them back and forth until you can get them to come loose. There's I think there's 2 here, and then there's 1 here and 1 here, so there's 4. And then the rest are 10mm screws, which obviously, and then just so that, you know, not to have too many other tools, you also have 2 Phillips head screws over here, which hopefully aren't rusted in. So I'll get these clips out, and then we'll continue. All right, well, I got the clips out. One survived, one did not. So I will replace this one. I still got to do the back ones. And I've got the regular screwdriver was a bit challenging to get these Phillips bolts out. So I pulled out one of these, and now I'm going to cheat. Oops. And where am I going? Here we go. If you have a magnetic tray, it's a handy thing. All your various fasteners, plastic ones obviously don't work in there. Alright, so 2 more clips to get out, and then we'll get the rest of these screws out. So the clips on the back and the clips on the front part of this are actually different. They're a different size. Look at that. That one wasn't even put in properly. Obviously this has been down before, so keep that in mind. Smaller ones towards the rear. Let's get the 10 millimeter now. I'm assuming that these are attached, yeah. Just kind of a little intermediate panel. And there's, oh, look at that. I got these guys. Too sure that's original. Alright, well this one obviously is just going to pop right out. And so I've got one more over here to take out. Just see if this one is going to go easier. Yeah. Come on, baby. What happens with these things is the dirt gets in the little grooves and makes them reluctant to move. Sort of jams them up. I gotta move light. I think this one will come out. Yeah, I don't know. Fighting battle, typical day in the garage. With the simplest things, always. Let me get this out first. Come on. There we go. Well, I'll have to figure it out once I take it down. Probably there's dirt inside which is not letting the jaws come back. Okay, so we got 2 more screws here, and this panel should be off. There we go. And carefully set it aside. Now we'll have access to underneath the car. The reason why we need to do this is to get at this filter housing, which is up here. I'm going to bring the camera around and show you in a second here. So, just to give you some orientation, the front of the car, there's a cross member on the subframe round section, and just above it on the right hand side, this is where that inline filter is right there. And it's in a bracket, and there's 2 lines. One line connects to the bottom of the transmission. I can only imagine that being a return line. And the other one goes into the front, which obviously is a transmission cooler. There is either a line in the rad or a separate one. I don't know, never checked. But anyway, that's where it is. It's that filter is in that line. So we're going to remove it. It's held on, the bracket's held on to the side of the transmission with a 10 millimeter. So we can get that off and get it on. But first, we're going to drain the fluid. All right, now for the fun stuff. So I've got a ratchet, because I don't have a 3/8 breaker bar. I suppose I could use a breaker bar and an adapter. But I don't think it should be on that tight, because it's only supposed to be like 35 foot-pounds. I should be able to pull this with that, just with that. So we're going to do that, and then I've got a jar, and I've got my bucket. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to get the fluid in the bucket, get it streamed, and still be able to capture some of the fluid with the jar so we can see, get a good look at it. So let's see. Well, obviously someone's got a little crazy. I'll try a little bit of it. There we go. So it's now coming out pretty easy. And I'm going to hold the bucket up. Bring it over the jar nice and close. There we go. Well, to me, that looks pretty dark. It's not totally brown, but that's pretty dark fluid. So we're going to let that drain, and then we'll start working on the filter. Well, while we're waiting for it to drain, let's get a look at the drain plug here. Hopefully you can see that all right. And we can focus in. So the material that's on here is from the friction plates in the transmission. That material wears off. It's metallic, it's magnetic, and so they put a plug in that collects that. Anything that wears off, this is normal. If you see big chunks, that's not normal, but just these fine particles. You can feel it on your fingers. And then, so what we do is we just clean it off. And it'll be reluctant to come off, so you just keep working it, keep getting a clean section of the cloth until such time as there's no more material left on it. It's nice and clean, and then we're just going to replace the crush washer before we put it back in. Okay, let it keep draining. Well, now that I've got this in the jar and we can get a look at it, you can see that it's light really doesn't like going through it. It is quite dark. There's a lot of stuff suspended in this fluid, so I'm pretty sure this is overdue. For what I'm going to do though, I'm going to put this in recycling, and before we pour the transmission fluid into the transmission, I'm going to put a little bit in the jar so you can take another look. I'll do a little side by side. I'll do a little picture side by side between the dirty and the clean so you can see the difference. So we're ready. This has been draining for about 10 minutes and it just keeps dripping, but I can't let it drip for 2 days, so we're going to put it on. We've cleaned the surface. I've installed the new crush washer. I've cleaned you saw me clean the drain plug, and now we're going to put it in. And as we get it in, even though it's not tight, it will stop dripping. So this is the time to clean it off. Now this is where we need to torque it to 35 foot-pounds. I didn't get my torque wrench ready, so let me pause for a second. There we go. So in my tool shop here, I've got a small quick type torque wrench to 25 foot-pounds, and I've got one from 50. So in between 25 and 50, I go to my all standby, which is a dial type. And hopefully you can see this on the screen. And as you tighten, the needle moves. Okay, we're gonna have to take another bite here of this. Make sure you can see. And so we're at 25, 30, 35 right there. There we go. So it's tightened. And then the last thing we want to do with this is just take a little bit of brake clean. And the reason why we do this is so that when we put the new fluid in afterwards, we're going to be checking to see if there's any leaks. And if it's still wet with transmission fluid, you won't be able to tell. But if you get it nice and dry, and you can get it nice and dry by using some brake clean, as long as we can still get it, it makes it easy to see if you've got a leak. So that's done. Now let's move on to the filter. Alright, so what we're going to try and do here is get the clips. Now that one's in the wrong place, so we'll just get the bottom one. Luckily they've put this one in an accessible spot, and then we can move it out of the way. Next up, what we'll do is get the quarter-inch drive ratchet. Now this is the part where I can't even see it, so it's going to be hard for you to see, but I'll try and point it out. I'm going to change your orientation here. Alright, I don't know if you can see from that angle. I'll probably move you around. But I've got the quarter-inch drive ratchet, if you can see there, my hand's on there, and it's at I think it was like almost like a 45-degree angle. It's going up and, you know, to the back corner away from you to get it oriented. And it's a 10 millimeter on a quarter-inch drive short socket, and so it's very difficult to show you, obviously, because I can't get my hands in there and show you at the same time. So I'm holding the back of the socket so that it doesn't slip off the nut, and I'm turning it, and when it no longer ratchets, it means it's loose enough that I can do it with my fingers, and I'll finish it that way. We're almost there. I think I'll get it now with the fingers. Yep. All right, so hopefully you can see something. Yeah, I've got it. There it is. And so now, the other part clips on. Here we go. So it's kind of like the top part is a half bracket. You'll see it once I get the filter out of the way. And it hooks in, snaps around, and then one screw holds it. So now we're going to get this hose off down here, and some fluid will come out. We'll get the bucket underneath, and then we'll be able to pull this out. It should come all the way down into this opening, and then we can get it off. Get the pick in the bottom, help to break away the There we go. Make sure your bucket's in place. You won't get a lot of fluid, but you want to catch what does come out. Some's coming out of the hard line from the transmission as well as from the soft line. Alright, so we're going to just lift this up here. And then luckily there's a little bit of leeway here. So all we have to do next is get this line off. If you can turn it, as you can see, it's a little bit of, but you want to do it slowly so you don't spray fluid everywhere. Shouldn't be too much in it here. Boy, come on. Well, that was a bit more than I expected. There we go. Well, got all over the back of my hand. And it's out. Alright, so here's the new one. There's the part number if you want it. And so now we're going to take off the return line from the filter. And we're going to put on the new one. There we go. When you're replacing these, you can usually get in the light and find exactly the pattern and that the clamp made on the hose and put it back in the exact same position, and that will help seal it the way it should be. So okay, so let's put on the, I'll switch you over. Hopefully you can see. I can barely see. A little bit of fluid helps that stuff go on. Flaps back on. Now I can feed it back up into the little holder. And then of course the other end can go on the return line. There we go. And then all we got to do is put this clamp back on. I'm just going to take the camera off the tripod here so that you can see. You get it up there, and this little hook goes in here. Now we're going to need two hands, I think, to get it onto the filter and get it hooked in. So I think you get the idea. Right, so I've got the clamp now back on in position. And like before, I've used some brake clean to clean up any of the drips and runs so it looks dry. That way if there is a leak, we'll find it. And if you look up to here on this, what I found is that if you put the filter into the top or removable part of the clamp, and there's that seam on the filter fits right through there, and then it becomes an assembly that you can then clip on and then screw into the base, and that works out pretty good. So then I was able to get that. There's a view of the dipstick just above that dampener down there, and I'll And there we go. The dipstick is keyed. Oops, there we go. Yeah, you can see there's a little notch on there. So what we're going to do is there's a little bit of oil left on it. So we're going to clean that off, put it aside, and we'll set up the funnel. Okay, I've got the funnel set up and should be able to see down there. So I've done a combination of taping it on one of the rad hoses as well as small bungee cord to hold it in place while I'm pouring. And then when I've cleaned the inside of the funnel, and as this is a top tip, if you have funnels that you use for different things, when you clean it with the fluid you're going to put into it. So I've used some of the Honda DW1 on a rag to clean the inside of the funnel. So now the funnel is nice and clean and it's not contaminated with something else. And now I can start pouring the fluid in. So what I'm going to do is put 3 liters in, and then I'm going to check it. So what my objective is to get the transmission to the point where it is above the minimum line when it's cold, maybe halfway up, and then I'll be able to start it and run it and drive it to warm it up. So while we're pouring, you don't want to go quickly when you've got a hose, but this is a good time to take a peek and to see the fluid going down and make sure that it's going in and there's no leaks. So you don't want to leak. So I've cleaned the floor and everything of any drops that or spills that I made while I was getting the old fluid and changing the filter and stuff like that. So that way, if it does leak, we'll know because there'll be a towel on the floor and it's not an old one. So anyway, I won't make you watch this. I'll just do the 3 and then we'll come back. Okay, so I've cleaned out the jar and I don't even need the light and poured some of the new fluid in there. So I think you can see what a dramatic difference that makes. So I'm now going to put that into the car. Okay, I'm now in the car. I finished filling it, put about 3 1/3 liters in, and now I've checked the fluid level. It's over full, and I'm going to start the engine, and that'll get the pump running and the fluid turning. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to cycle the transmission. I don't need the wheels to turn. I'm just going to cycle the transmission through the gears, and that'll get the fluid moving between the gears. And then I'm going to turn it off and check the fluid level, make sure that we're within the range that we need to go and drive the car and get it up to temperature. Well, hopefully you can see that. I pull the dipstick out, and it is above the low level and it's not to the high level, so it's in the range I was looking for, but it's still a little bit low. I might add a bit before going and driving it, but I don't want to add too much because as it warms up it expands and the level's going to come back up, so you don't want to make sure you don't put too much in. Alright, so I now have just over 3.5 liters of fluid in, and I've run the car, so I'm just checking to see if there's any leaks on any of the hoses that we had open, and it all looks good. It's nice and dry. The drain plug is dry. There's no leaking there at all. So we'll call this good, and now I can reinstall the splash guard that goes underneath here, so which is I've got back there. So I'm going to get that done. I don't have to show you that. I know you'll figure it out. And then we're going to go test drive the car. Well, that's it. So just to recap, where I left you. We just finished checking the fluid level, took it for a drive, came back, took the level reading within 1 minute of driving it, and there was nothing on the dipstick. Put in the remaining 400 milliliters that I had left, and then ran the engine, shut it off, and it was almost exactly on full, slightly over. So I think that's close enough to the correct level. It might have been 50 milliliters less. That's not that big a deal. Anyway, so it's nice and clean on the dipstick. Car drives well. So that's it. So I want to thank you for watching Gary's Garage, and hopefully you've learned a little bit if you're planning on doing this job. And if you like what you saw, give me a thumbs up or a comment. I like to hear your comments. I'm always doing my best to improve. And if you like what I'm doing on the channel, just subscribe. I appreciate that very much. So anyway, thanks for watching Gary's Garage.